안녕하세요. Welcome. In this lesson, we will learn about a fundamental aspect of Korean grammar: particles. Particles in Korean are essential for indicating the role of nouns in a sentence. Let's dive in. Firstly, let's set some context. In Korean, the sentence structure is different from English. Think of it as speaking like Yoda from Star Wars. The verb usually goes at the end in Korean. So, starting with basic sentences, we can see that there is the subject, or topic first, with the particle, then the object, followed by a particle, and finally the verb. In later courses, we will look at more advanced grammar rules, but this structure is a good starting point, especially for helping to build cadence in speaking Korean. Now, let's see an example using this structure. In English, the structure is, I read a book. In Korean, it follows the structure, I, a book, read, with the verb at the end, and a particle after each noun. So in Korean, it is, subject, I, then the particle, then the object, a book, followed by another particle, and finally the verb, read. Or, in Korean they say, 나는 책을 읽어요. Which leads us to the next question. What are particles? As we mentioned in the first slide, particles in Korean are essential for indicating the role of nouns in a sentence. Here are the 4 most common particles in Korean. For the first 3 particles, their usage varies according to whether the noun ends in a vowel or a consonant. For each example below, we start with the particle for consonant-ending nouns, followed by its counterpart for vowel-ending nouns. Let's start with the subject marker, which uses e for the consonant ending and ka for the vowel ending. Next is the topic marker, which uses n for the consonant ending and nin for the vowel ending. Then we have the object marker, which uses for the consonant ending and d for the vowel ending. And finally we have the location markers, which shows action to or from a place, and 에서, which shows action at a place. Now, let's understand the differences between subject and topic markers. The subject marker often introduces new information or emphasizes the subject. The topic marker highlights the topic of the sentence, often setting the context or theme. We can use the same sentences with different markers, depending on the context. Let's use the sentences, the book is interesting and the apple is delicious. We'll see how these sentences change with different markers. Now, let's focus on the subject marker, which uses e for the consonant ending and ka for the vowel ending. The subject marker identifies the subject performing the action. It often introduces new information or emphasizes the subject. Let's look at these 2 examples. The first is, the book is interesting. 책이 재미있어요. And the second is, the apple is delicious. 사과가 맛있어요. Notice the placement of the subject particles after each of the nouns. Next, let's look at the topic marker, which uses n for the consonant ending and nin for the vowel ending. The topic marker highlights the topic of the sentence. It often sets the context or theme and can also imply contrast or emphasize the topic. Let's look at some more examples, and again the first is, the book is interesting. 책은 재미있어요. And the second is, the apple is delicious. 사과는 맛있어요. The only difference is that we are using topic particles instead of subject particles, because the context has already been set. Now, let's move on to the object marker, which uses for the consonant ending and d for the vowel ending. The object marker indicates the direct object of the action. In these examples, we're not including the subject or topic in the sentence, because often the first part of a sentence is dropped in Korean, especially if the subject or topic is already understood. Based on this assumption, let's proceed with the sentence examples. The first sentence is, I read a book. 책을 읽어요. And the second is, I eat an apple. 사과를 먹어요. Finally, let's cover the location markers, and 에서. These particles indicate where an action takes place, or the direction towards which an action is directed. With these examples, the first is, I go to school, showing where the action is directed. 학교에 가요. The second is, I study at school, showing where the action takes place. 학교에서 공부해요. Let's practice combining nouns with particles to build our cadence. Repeat after me to get used to the cadence and pronunciation. At the top of the table, we have the noun, followed by the subject, topic, and object markers. Let's start with the Korean word for book, which has a consonant ending, and add each particle to pronounce. 택, 택이, 택은, 택을, 택, 택이, 택은, 택을. Now let's repeat for the Korean word for apple, which has a vowel ending. 사과, 사과가, 사과는, 사과를, 사과, 사과가, 사과는, 사과를. Let's practice using the subject marker with our nouns in the same sentence as before. 책이 재미있어요. 책이 재미있어요. 사과가 맛있어요. 사과가 맛있어요. Now, let's practice using the topic marker with our nouns again. 책은 재미있어요. 책은 재미있어요. 사과는 맛있어요. 사과는 맛있어요. Next, let's practice using the object marker with our nouns. 책을 읽어요. 책을 읽어요. 사과를 먹어요. 사과를 먹어요. Finally, let's practice using the location markers with our nouns. 학교에 가요. 학교에 가요. 학교에서 공부해요. 학교에서 공부해요. Now that we've learned the particles, let's practice forming sentences using some new nouns and verbs. Here are the nouns we'll be using. 한국어, 영화, 음악, 책, 사과. 한국어, 영화, 음악, 책, 사과. And here are the verbs we'll be using. 가요, 먹어요, 공부해요, 들어요. 가요, 먹어요, 공부해요, 들어요. Let's see some example sentences using these nouns and verbs, along with the particles we've learned. 학교에 가요. 학교에 가요. 사과를 먹어요. 사과를 먹어요. 한국어를 공부해요. 한국어를 공부해요. 음악을 들어요. 음악을 들어요. Now, try creating your own sentences, using the verbs and nouns we've practiced. This will help you get comfortable with the structure and cadence of Korean. Your homework is to write 5 sentences using different nouns and particles we've learned today. Record yourself reading these sentences to practice pronunciation and cadence. Here's the list of verbs and nouns for your reference. That's it for this lesson. Stay tuned for the next lesson, where we will practice cadence, using the Korean verb structure of want to, such as want to see. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Korean learning content like this. See you soon.